Full reaction. When the action is a breaking news story,
this compact car slammed head-on.
No one reacts faster and with the best team coverage than Channel 2 News.
This is one area definitely to avoid.
We're first on the scene, first to break in to show you what's happening.
I'm Jeff Gianola with some breaking news to report.
That commitment makes Channel 2 News the one people watch when the big story breaks. For breaking news, the action's always on Channel 2 News.
Ed Hume with tips on keeping summer roses going strong tomorrow at 9.
For the first time, Colin Powell is specific about abortion, affirmative action, gun control, and school prayer. A report from ABC's Barbara Walters. The United States ready to use stealth aircraft in the bombardment of the Bosnian Serbs. And a brand new Bible, gender neutral and politically correct.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We begin tonight with one of the most tantalizing questions in the country. What does Colin Powell stand for? There is no getting away from the fact that every time you turn around or look at a poll, much of the country seems to want the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs to get into the presidential race. The trouble is that vast numbers of people have no idea whether he's a Republican or a Democrat, or what he stands for on a range of issues that tend to divide people politically in seconds. The former general has just finished a series of interviews with ABC's Barbara Walters, and for the first time, he commits himself on some of the issues.
Powell spelled out his views to us in half a dozen interviews over the past several months. We talked in his father's home village in Jamaica, in the South Bronx where Powell was raised, and at his home in Virginia. Sounding more like a Democrat than a Republican, Colin Powell went on the record on abortion, gun control, the death penalty, and prayer in the schools. Abortion, are you pro-choice?
If a woman becomes pregnant and does not wish the child, I hope she would carry the child to term and then put the child up for adoption. If, however, it is her choice to abort, it's a matter between her, her doctor, her family, and her conscience and her God. And if she chooses to abort, that's her choice. So that's pro-choice.
Gun control.
I am a gun owner, but at the same time, I am willing to put up with some level of inconvenience in acquiring guns or having guns in my possession that makes sure that I am a responsible citizen who should be allowed to have a gun.
Whether it's registering or waiting a certain amount of time.
Registration or waiting a certain amount of time.
The death penalty.
I support it.
Support it. Prayer in the schools, for or against?
I think prayer belongs first and foremost in the home. But I have no problem if, upon arriving at school, a quiet moment is allowed for a child to do whatever child wishes to do in that private moment. I would be against any sort of stricture that says you will come in and you will pray and anything of that nature, and I don't think that's what most people have in mind.
Thank you. Until now, Powell has been reluctant to align himself with either major party, and he does not even rule out challenging Bill Clinton. But he says the more likely choice is that between independent or Republican. Would you rather run as a Republican than take on what would be involved in being an independent?
If I were to decide to enter politics and run for the presidency, the easier way to do it, I think, would be as a Republican.
And when would he decide if he's going to run as a Republican? Powell believes he has to decide by the end of November in order to enter the primaries. But if he chooses the independent route, he can wait as long as next spring. This is Barbara Walters, ABC News, New York.
There are certainly people both in and out of politics who believe that General Powell is a great deal more interested in securing a comfortable financial future than sailing in the dangerous waters of presidential politics, and they point to the tremendous publicity campaign associated with the arrival of his new biography, or rather autobiography. But at the moment, there is no hotter name than his on the political establishment, and they watch every move. ABC's John Cochran reports the politicians' reaction to the Walters interview.
Republican candidates have no desire to get into a fight with the popular Powell on the issues, not until and unless Powell runs against them. But Powell's stands on abortion and school prayer did not play well today with social conservatives.
On these hot social issues, General Powell is going to disappoint a large number of people who then would be quite unlikely, in spite of his heroism, of being willing to support him for the presidency.
Still, today, some Republicans said Powell is strong enough on other family values to win over doubters.
Colin Powell, I think, could appeal to conservative primary voters on the basis of his character and leadership, and to moderate Republican primary voters on the basis of his views.
Late today, Bob Dole says he, for one, is not intimidated by Powell's popularity.
The fact he gets in the race doesn't mean the rest of us are all going to pull out.
In Detroit, Phil Gramm, after hearing of Powell's views, downplayed a possible challenge from him.
I don't believe he's going to win the Republican nomination.
Democrats might prefer Powell to run as an independent, which might take away Republican votes. But if Powell goes for the GOP nomination, the Democratic Party chairman thinks he will get it.
He would certainly be a very strong challenge, the immediate challenge to Bob Dole. I honestly think he could probably beat him.
As for the vice presidency, Powell's close friends say he is not interested, but that every day he gets more interested in becoming president. They now believe he will run if he believes he's likely to win. John Cochran, ABC News, Capitol Hill.
And finally, there is this. Necessary as it is, there are risks for General Powell in defining where he stands. People with all sorts of different opinions like to think that he stands with them, and that will change. And so will the way politicians and the media deal with his credentials. Here's ABC's John Donovan.
Here's what Bill Clinton, Bob Dole, Phil Gramm, and all the other declared candidates for president have to envy in the undeclared Colin Powell. He is the only one among them with no record in politics to defend, no voting record, no backlog of broken promises. Powell's history is that of a soldier, from modest beginnings in Harlem and the Bronx, through 2 tours of duty in Vietnam, to his appointment as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and his running of the Persian Gulf War, where he asked the nation to trust him.
But trust me, trust me.
To most, it seemed, trusting Powell paid off. Soldiers do not answer directly to the public, but candidates do. And as a candidate, Powell must expect his opponents to go looking for flaws in his 35 years as a military man. 1968 in Vietnam, for example. In the aftermath of the My Lai massacre, when U.S. troops murdered nearly 400 Vietnamese villagers, Powell, then a deputy operations officer in Vietnam, was asked to investigate reports about U.S. troops committing atrocities, but he simply accepted the word of the officers he questioned who denied atrocities were being committed. 1986, when Powell's then boss, Defense Secretary Caspar Weinberger, was under investigation for involvement in the Iran-Contra scandal, Powell's answers to questions investigators asked him about Weinberger were described in the special prosecutor's report as, quote, at least misleading. Powell has vehemently denied that he misled investigators. 1990, at the start of the Persian Gulf conflict, Powell counseled against war with Saddam Hussein, preferring economic sanctions to military action. When he was overruled, he insisted on such a massive number of troops that he has been faulted for being overly cautious, avoiding any fight where the outcome is uncertain. 1992, Bosnia. Again, Powell was adamant that the U.S. should not get involved militarily. He put the White House in an awkward position by taking his argument to the newspapers. In fairness to Powell, most officers of his generation, shaped by the experience of Vietnam, share his aversion to fighting wars where the goals and methods are not spelled out clearly. Whatever the rationale, if Powell becomes a candidate, it will be open season on everything he has done in the relatively protected environment of the military for 35 years. John Donovan, ABC News, New York.
Barbara Walters' exclusive interview, and the profile will be seen in a full hour of 2020 on this Friday. One more political note today. California Governor Pete Wilson is pulling out of the Iowa Republican Presidential Caucus next year. His managers say that he will concentrate on other early primaries where he thinks he has a better chance. Governor Wilson, who currently supports a woman's right to choose to have an abortion, has been unable to generate any support in Iowa from conservative Christians who are a powerful force in the Republican Party there. When we come back, the other news. Bombing Bosnia, how the diplomats determine what NATO's pilots can and cannot do. At the O.J. Simpson trial, the defense in search of an ending. And George Bush in China, a tough message for President Clinton and an attack on the Women's Conference.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, brought to you by American Honda.
copy paper or plastic? Sir? Sir? Paper? Plastic?
Well, at least you know how to get the groceries home. The always dependable Accord from Honda. Possibly the world's easiest decision.
In the mood for something wild? Have a Fiesta from Campbell's. The soup with a spicy mix of rousing rice, colorful carrots, and the pizzazz of sweet red peppers. You'll fall for the flavor. Discover the feeling of Fixodent Fresh. A stronger, longer hold, a more secure, fresh approach to wearing dentures. And the fresh sensation gives you the confidence to live life without limits. Try a fresh approach.
The Western Military Alliance said today that those American cruise missiles it used against the Serbs over the weekend in Bosnia may have been awfully expensive. 13 missiles at $1.3 million each. But NATO officials say they hit the targets they wanted to hit, and they did not, as the Serbs charge, kill civilians. On the other hand, after nearly 2 weeks of NATO airstrikes, the Serbs have still not moved their heavy weapons away from Sarajevo. At Bosnian Serb headquarters in Pale, here's ABC's Mike Lee.
NATO jets kept up the pressure today with little resistance from the ground. Much of the Serb anti-aircraft radar was either destroyed or not being used. It was precisely to destroy Serb anti-aircraft systems that NATO launched its cruise missiles yesterday.
The reason it is the most effective choice of weapon is it is very, very accurate, comparatively invulnerable given the height it comes in at, and it does not risk clearly an airframe or a pilot.
In a letter today to President Clinton, Bosnian Serb leader Radovan Karadzic called the cruise missile attack unprovoked and barbaric, and that NATO has declared war on the Serbs. A leading Serb delegate to the U.S.-sponsored peace talks says the Americans are using tomahawks like they were playing a game of cowboys and Indians.
That doesn't make sense at all. If it is if it has been meant as a threat to the Serbs, to bring the Serbs to the table, it's not necessary because we are ready for it.
The military is just not delivering on the ground, and that's the problem. We do not see any heavy weapons being moved, and that is why the operation continues.
Bosnian Serb military leaders say they will withdraw from Sarajevo if the West guarantees that Bosnian government forces will not overrun the 150,000 Serbs living in and around the city. As far as the UN and NATO are concerned, that is another Serb stalling tactic. Mike Lee, ABC News, Pale.
The history of the Bosnian Serbs, particularly their political and military commanders, gives NATO reason to be suspicious. And so the Western Alliance is now moving to deepen the arsenal it is using against them. Pentagon officials said today that as soon as the Italian government gives permission, they want to put half a dozen stealth bombers at the Italian airbase in Aviano. Aviano is the staging point for many of the NATO bombing missions into Bosnia, and ABC's John McCarthy is there.
Bringing stealth fighter bombers here to Aviano, a base that is already packed with high-performance aircraft, raises the stakes for everyone in Bosnia. It is an effort to inflict still more pain on the Bosnian Serbs, but also an admission that all the bombing thus far has still not done the job. Because the stealth fighter bomber is virtually invisible to radar, this $45 million airplane, if deployed, could strike the Bosnian Serbs' most heavily defended targets before they know they are under attack. Aviano is already the busiest bomber base in the world. Designed to handle 40 planes, 130 are here today. Because the military effort is so closely tied to diplomacy, pilots are severely limited in what they can bomb and how. The politicians want to minimize civilian casualties and have even ruled out attacks on military troop concentrations. Hurt the Bosnian Serb military, drive them to the peace talks, but try not to kill anyone.
You're not going to drop unless you can tell 100% what you're dropping on, 100%. No guessing.
It does make it a little more difficult because you really need to be sure that you're not releasing on something that would hurt a civilian or a non-player in this thing.
There have been civilian casualties, but amazingly few considering that NATO planes have flown more than 3,000 missions in less than 2 weeks. One other demand that the politicians are making of the military is not to lose any NATO pilots. That is another reason the military commanders want to add the stealth fighter bomber to the mix here. John McWethy, ABC News, Aviano, Italy.
In other news at home today, it was not a great day for the defense in the O.J. Simpson trial. We'll have that story when we come back.
If your home or structure has a plumbing system made of polybutylene plastic pipes and acetyl plastic fittings, you may be entitled to money to fix your plumbing. Polybutylene pipes and fittings are usually gray plastic, not metal, copper, brass, or CPVC. This plumbing system may leak and cause damage. To receive information about the settlement, call 1-800-568-9455. 1-800-568-9455.
You're going to have to open that bag, ma'am.
Well, if you insist. Plump, delicious Sunsweet bite-sized pitted prunes. Sunsweet, always a sweet idea.
We've got that high-pressure area rolling in across the U.S.
I'm Mr. Crunch. I'm Mr. Munch. Trying to reduce fat, Crunch and Munch. 35% less fat than the original. Yet still crunchy, nutty, and sweet. Try it. Reduce fat, Crunch and Munch.
It's all your passions in one bite.
1847, Werner Siemens opens his first factory and begins to manufacture the world's most advanced telegraph. That was then. This is now. Today, Siemens has 70 factories all across America, with over 20,000 manufacturing people turning out an astonishing variety of high-tech electronic and electrical products with quality American industry can count on. Siemens, precision thinking.
Men, is gray hair sneaking up on you, right under your nose, making you look too old?
Whoa, it is sneaking up on me. Up here, too.
You need Just for Men Color Gel, made for the hard-to-color gray of mustaches and sideburns. Simply brush in this no-drip gel, and in 5 minutes, rinse. Gray's gone. Your mustache and sideburns blend perfectly with your natural hair color.
That gray won't sneak up on me again.
Just for Men Color Gel, the sure thing for a natural look.
At the O.J. Simpson trial today, there was some thought, briefly, that the defense was going to rest, but the defense wants to end big, naturally, and it doesn't have an ending. Here's ABC's Aaron Brown.
For the defense, there is no better ending than Mark Fuhrman, and they don't have him yet.
And we cannot say we rest in good conscience. As officers of the court, we're not going to say those words.
They might have said those words if the judge had accepted any of the options they'd offered him, from granting Fuhrman immunity and forcing him to testify, to eliminating key parts of his testimony, the parts they worry about.
Moving to strike the portion of the testimony of Detective Fuhrman that dealt with the discovery of the Rockingham glove and to strike the glove itself from evidence.
Judge Ito said no to that and every other option the defense offered, then saying his first concern was a very restless jury that has hardly heard a word of testimony in a week. He ordered the trial to go on while the defense appeals, which brought the case back to the gloves. After the dramatic glove demonstration, the gloves have become hugely important to both sides. Using pictures taken at football games, prosecutors are attempting to show Simpson wearing gloves like those found at the crime scene.
If this all goes perfectly for the prosecution, their glove expert will next testify these gloves aren't just like the ones found at the crime scene, they are the ones found at the crime scene, and that would be a major coup for the prosecution. Aaron Brown, ABC News, Los Angeles.
News about safety today. It turns out that those headrests on front seats in most cars may not be very effective after all. The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety rates the head restraints of only 3 car makers, Honda, Porsche, and Volvo, as being good. In other cases, they found little or no evidence that most restraints protected passengers from whiplash injuries. On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrials gained about 4 points today to close at 47.04. The trading was slow. On the NASDAQ market, stocks gained 6.5 points. When we come back, what former President Bush said to anger the delegates at the Women's Conference in China.
Oh, cornflakes for breakfast, huh?
Yeah, she's into nutrition.
Oh, yeah. Perhaps you should eat Total. It has 100% of 11 of the many vitamins and minerals you need. To get that from cornflakes, you'll both have to add more than just milk.
Yeah, such as?
Well, raspberries for vitamin C.
Oh, okay.
Catfish for B6. What? Beets for folic acid.
Beets?
And some crawdads for nice.
Huh?
So, cornflakes or...
No way. Total.
Big total part of a balanced diet. One bowl, 100%. Hey, had enough?
Hey.
Life rarely imitates orange cones. Orange cones, however, can be made to imitate life. At Lexus, we've created a suspension system so advanced, it's smooth when you want it to be, and responsive when you need it to be. The new 1995 LS400. Impossible? The laws of Lexus state otherwise.
Before introduction, a Moen faucet is tested at least 500,000 times against leaks and drips. So it's hard to find a more reliable faucet, no matter how you look at it. Moen. Buy it for looks. Buy it for life.
Everybody has morning breath. Unfortunately, not everybody has scope.
In Beijing today, former President George Bush, who is on a private speaking tour, has been very public with his criticism of American policy towards China and about the Women's Conference in Beijing. ABC's Jim Laurie is there.
George Bush, who the Chinese see as an old friend, criticized the Clinton administration for using too much confrontation and too little quiet diplomacy in dealing with China. Mr. Bush, whose visit is sponsored by an American phosphate company, chose confrontation and no diplomacy in referring to the UN Women's Conference and its effect on U.S.-China relations.
You know, I'm not sure this women's conference, with all respect, has helped anything.
Mr. Bush dismissed complaints the Chinese have hampered the conference with too many restrictions and tried to shift the blame to an outspoken former congresswoman and delegate to this conference.
Well, I feel somewhat sorry for the Chinese having Bella Abzug running around China. Bella Abzug was one who has always represented the extremes of the women's movement.
In response, Abzug, who last week received a UN award, said Bush was not only Bella bashing, but also denigrating the work of 35,000 women and 180 governments at the conference. A conference which is making important breakthroughs in writing a new UN manifesto. On sexual rights, the conferees agreed women have the right to control their own sexuality without coercion, the right to say no. The plan of action also calls for international protection for victims of war and rape and is likely to urge the decriminalization of abortion around the world.
With such strides in women's rights, said one delegate, disputes between George Bush and Bella Abzug are unfortunate diversions. Jim Laurie, ABC News, Beijing.
Here's something that caught our eye today in terms of money. A lot has been said about the millions for the new Dallas Cowboy star Deion Sanders, but, you know, chess isn't doing too badly. The World Chess Championship opened on the 107th floor of the World Trade Center. Garry Kasparov, who first won the title 10 years ago, is being challenged by 25-year-old Vishwanathan Anand, a Grand Master from India. And the winner is going to take home $1 million. The challenger, half of that. When we come back, the politically correct Bible.
My new denture adhesive is Polygrip free. It is free of artificial flavors and it's free of artificial colors. Polygrip free holds my dentures tight. I can enjoy more of my favorite foods. Polygrip free.
Please pass the all fruit.
Polaner All Fruit is real fruit, sweetened only with fruit juice.
Would you please pass the jelly?
You'll call it delicious, you'll call it remarkable, but please don't dare call it jelly.
All right, let's stop it up here.
The coffee perking in this pot is America's best loved coffee.
As long as fathers dance with daughters.
as long as there are welcome mats and childhood sweethearts. Just as long as families come together, Maxwell House will always be good to the last drop.
Dear Thompsons, when I ran out of Thompson's Water Seal waterproofer, a clerk said, "Try this one. They're all the same." What a mistake. 2 years later, rain still rolls off the Thompson side. The other side soaks it up. Thanks, Thompsons. Steven Zukowskis.
Look, you're not going to believe this, but Goodyear retailers have lowered prices. An amazing 25% on some of Goodyear's most popular passenger, light truck, and performance tires. Other sale prices start at $19.99. Hurry, this sale ends soon.
I'm Steve Dunn. Local news is next. We'll show you how one Northeast Portland neighborhood turned their crime-ridden corner into a sight for sore eyes. And a new school with a no-nonsense approach to education that's turning heads. It's all next at 6:30.
Finally from us this evening, political correctness and the best-selling book of all time. When the King James Version of the Bible was published in 1611, it was received without criticism. After all, King James had commissioned the work, chosen the writers, and who was going to argue with the king? But today, a New Testament is rarely free of controversy, especially when it calls into question the sex of the book's main character. Here's our religion correspondent, Peggy Waymeyer.
Now, our scripture lesson comes from Mark's Gospel today.
When the Reverend Hal Brady prepares sermons for his congregation at the First Methodist Church of Dallas, he sometimes changes the Bible's language so that God is female as well as male. Several miles away, students at Dallas Theological Seminary cringe at the thought of tampering with scriptural references to God. This week, the debate over God's gender will intensify when Oxford University Press releases its controversial edition of the world's best-selling book. Oxford has removed from the Bible any references which might be considered sexist, racist, or what the Oxford people think are insensitive. So instead of beginning the Lord's Prayer with Our Father in Heaven, it's Our Father, Mother in Heaven. The Son of Man is now the human one. The word darkness as a reference to evil is out for fear of racist overtones. Now, in him there is no darkness reads, in God light is never absent. Susan Thistlethwaite is one of 6 Protestant scholars who edited the New Bible.
What I hope our translation will accomplish is that everyone will hear themselves named in Scripture, and nobody will feel themselves excluded.
Besides, she argues, many biblical terms are metaphors.
God is not literally a father any more than when you call Jesus the Lamb of God, Jesus is literally a small sheep.
But some people believe the Oxford editors have gone too far.
Our responsibility is to study it, understand it, and apply our lives to it, rather than alter it, make it accommodating to our times so that it doesn't offend people, and now we have something that's easy to live with. It's not supposed to be easy to live with.
Reverend Brady hasn't decided yet whether to stock his pews with the easier-to-live-with Bible. If he ever does, his congregation may be surprised to find that even the right hand of God has been changed to read the mighty hand. And now, left-handed people won't feel excluded. Peggy Waymeyer, ABC News, Dallas.
Before we leave, we welcome 2 new ABC affiliates, KMGH Channel 7 in Denver and WLNE Channel 6 in Providence, Rhode Island. Have a nice evening. I'm Peter Jennings. Good night.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
Tomorrow, the Coach
B, Wednesday at 9:30.
You're watching member-supported Oregon Public Broadcasting.